let's talk about the big news. Device is back to Astralis in a move I told you about and Thorin told you about on a little podcast called By the Numbers about fucking 6 months ago, maybe even longer. He's returned to what everyone is calling his home. Kind of a bit weird, but we'll get into that. And they did a little video, Astralis. They do that, don't they? And there it is. And Velkommen hjem.
Don't you care about when he's been gone forever? Coming forward from you guys, and they're doing it. And you need great side. Think they're gonna
I like the way they did the TikTok style music, right? Isn't it? Because that's what, like, basically that's like the music that goes on. Like, there's like a clip from like a movie where someone says something badass, and they'll put that shit in the background over it, making the scene objectively worse in every way. And Zoomers love that shit, don't they? Someone there, it's not TikTok style. It 100% is, mate. It's like all of the shorts that are coming out there. You can't avoid them. They're everywhere now. But anyway, they did a good job. And I do like their new jerseys. And Device is back. And let's talk about that rather than the clothes or the video. He's home. Yes, he has returned home. I saw an article, just to get biblical for a little bit. Did see an article published, I think it was by Blix.gg. I think it was their most successful on the CSGO subreddits, as I said in previous videos. They don't really get voted a lot for reasons I don't understand. But anyway, they did one and they said, return of the prodigal son. That was Device. Now, if there's one thing I hate, it's an overused phrase that's used incorrectly. Richard, I thought this was going to be about Device rejoining Astralis. You're now about to lecture us on the meaning of words. Yeah, I am, just for a little bit. Just indulge me, because the prodigal son gets used all the time, and it's completely misused because it comes from the Gospel of Luke, right? It's a biblical thing, and it's Jesus tells a parable, which was a well-known parable at the time, apparently, about the prodigal son, right? And what that was it's biblical again. Yeah, it is. Right. A son wanted his inheritance of his father, like early, ahead of time. And the father goes, yeah, all right then, I suppose, why not? Better I get to see you enjoy it. And then the son gets it, and he fucking just lives a life of indulgence, right? He pisses it all up against the wall on good times and parties, and then when he's got no money left, right, then decides he's going to have to get a shit job. And the only job that's available to him at the time is a pig farmer, which, by the way, obviously, this is an Abrahamic religious text. There's shit going on. There's subtext there, because, listen, even though Christians do eat pork, it was still generally considered bad, even in old school whatever. Doesn't really matter. But your pig farmer is like, that's pretty fucking bad. That's like the lowest of the low, you feel me? So he's so poor, he ends up like, he's starving, and he's envious of the pigs. He gets so poor, he ends up envious of the pigs. He looks at what the pigs are eating, and he goes like, that's better than what I've got when I go home. So anyway, he has a little sneaky peek at what's going on at his dad's house, and he sees that even his father's servants, for his father was indeed a generous man, a caring man, a compassionate man. Even his servants are living better than him on the streets as a pig farmer, right? And so he says, fuck it, I'm going to swallow my pride. And he goes to his dad, and he says to him, I'm sorry, please forgive me for squandering your inheritance. Can I come back and work as a servant? Because I'll be better off to be a servant to you than doing this pig farming shit. But when he gets there, his dad's so happy to see him, right? He says, fuck all of that noise about being a servant. You're my son. And he calls everyone, all the friends, all the family, and they have a big feast and celebrate his return, right? And so, look, I'll read you the Bible verse, right? He got up and went back to his father. While he was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. But his father ordered his servants, quickly, bring the finest robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Take the fattened calf and slaughter it. Then let us celebrate with a feast, because this son of mine was dead and has come come to life again. He was lost and has been found. And then the celebration began. And you see, the point of that is representative of why you should love God, because he will love you unconditionally. That's why they put it in the Bible. So, right, when people say the prodigal son has returned, that means that Device took all the gifts Astralis had given him, said, fuck y'all, pissed it all up against the wall, right? And then, in this allegory, his return to Astralis means the Astralis organization and Nicola Nyholm, in a roundabout way, are God. They are the ever-loving, ever-caring fathers. So I can't get on board with this. I can't. You can't say Device is the prodigal son. You have to stop. It turns Nicola Nyholm into God. I can't do it. It's got to stop. So anyway, no, Device didn't do that, did he? Let's just be clear. Let's set the table before we talk about whether this is a good move or not. Device wanted lots of things in his life. There's this misconception he moved to Sweden because of his girlfriend. He was already living in Sweden. Yes, with his girlfriend at the time, no longer together. We all know about that part, right? But yeah, he was already in Sweden, and he was already, and coronavirus had made traveling to and from Denmark a pain in the balls, because every time he wanted to go across that motherfucking bridge, he had to get his fucking papers out and show that he'd been vaxxed and all this other bullshit, and it just made a commute a fucking nightmare. So, on the one hand, he wanted some convenience, fair enough. On the other hand, he wanted a challenge, because his legacy has been defined by this strange myth that he was a system AWPer and was only good in Astralis because Glaive made a system that made him good. That, by the way, is one of the most egregious lies ever told by the Counter-Strike community. It's absurd, because if that were true, why has Glaive never been able to get another AWPer to work in Astralis since Device left? Think about it. Okay, good. Glad we've put that one to bed. And so, what Device wanted to do was go to another team, prove it was about him. He was up there with the Simples and the Zwus. And when we get to the end of time and we sit down and we talk about all of the GOATs, Device's name will be there. If not for peaks, for consistency. And to add to that, he needs to do it in two teams. And he knows that, because he's a smart fella. So, he goes to NIP. And quickly things unravel, and they unravel in like a real fucked up way. Girlfriend's out, team's underperforming, they are making him play maps that Astralis didn't, and he's had some mediocre performances. Suddenly, with the Anonymo incident, he found himself despised. It turns quickly, I'll tell you. He went from being a beloved player. No one ever said anything bad about Device when he was at Astralis. He goes to NIP. Everyone's excited about it. Everyone's wishing him well. Some personal problems, poor performance, one critical misjudgment in the world of Twitter, PR, with that Anonymo bullshit, and basically, bam, that's it. That was all it took for the community to start turning against him. As I've told you many times, and as many players will attest to, if they were being honest, when you are a beloved player and everyone around you is just telling you you're the shit all of the fucking time, when you end up being a despised or criticized, or hated on figure, it's really jarring, especially if you think you haven't done anything wrong. You're like, why do people hate me all of a sudden, right? And so, boom, he found himself in that position. And on top of that, the inherent cruelty, because look, there is a way to talk about relationships in sports, and by and large, it's not really something that, interests me, but it's topical because obviously Tom Brady something's been coming down the pipe, which we've known for a while. Obviously, it's my fault. I put him in my fucking NFL fantasy team this year, so obviously his life just has to go off the rails. I'm the guy that fucking made Eddie Lacy balloon up to 320 pounds in the off-season. Every player I draft is fucking cursed. So anyway, I knew that was coming. Brady has been, put out publicly. He's divorced, and we know that. And obviously, it's going to affect you. And Brady's got nothing to prove. He's the GOAT. But, he gets all the criticism, he gets all the hate, but now there is a new vector for cruelty. And so fans have already been doing it. The memes are already out. Saw one meme about it where it was basically like Tom Brady's, it was like a picture of that crying cat with a Xbox controller in its hand, you know, saying Tom Brady's kids playing Madden 23 so they can spend some time with their father. That's out there on NFL memes and all of that. It's like it's a new vector for cruelty, and sports players, you know, of any stripe, they're humans too, right? And so obviously these things hurt, and they will see these things. And in esports, which is a lot, you know, smaller, and people don't have handlers that like use their Twitter feed or whatever. Twitter just gives everybody access to you, especially if you keep your DMs open. I don't know why players do that, but whatever. People have said some really out of pocket shit about Device's relationship and speculating about it, and he will have seen this. And also as well, I think when you are a public figure, you are a little bit like a moth to the flame, and you seek this shit out and you expose yourself to it, and it's not nice. You know, I do it all the time. I can identify and empathize with that. I think Device had a real tough time, and it's not a surprise to me that he went and had like a mental health break, right? Because his life was coming apart. When you've got the world at your feet and suddenly you don't anymore, very jarring. He said as much, which we'll come to. But anyway, the problem then became, this is a huge money move, and it sort of shows you how far we've actually got to go with kind of mental health stuff. Because for me, Nip should have managed this way better. Everybody could have managed this way better in terms of expectations. Is he coming back? When's he coming back? How's he doing? How's he feeling today? And then just the optics of him playing loads of Face-It games. And so, look, I don't want to get into behind-the-scenes talk, but I'll just say this. It's unquestionable that Device would have been willing to come back and play in this NIP team now. But for whatever reason, NIP didn't want him back in the squad. And I don't know if that's like a financial thing, because while he's benched, he's only getting a fraction of his salary. And remember, if he's on sick leave, the Swedish government cover that stuff, right? And so, and NIP are a registered Swedish company, so they would have that, right? And they cover it up to a point and for an X amount of time. But it might have been financially better to have Device kind of, you know, not playing for a period, and then they looked to sell him, and they got, I think it was something like 600,000 euros back for a player that they funded in weird circumstances. So I'm pretty sure, based on things I've heard, he would have been willing to come back, but I don't think they wanted to go down that route because things was like set in motion financially. They've got a team that was working. Why rock the boat? It's proven, you know, they're off to the fucking major. You know, Alexi B's doing a great job there now. And so ultimately, when I see all these people saying like Nip got shafted, nah, they didn't at all. Nip got all of the initial benefit of having Device, all of the initial news buzz of having Device. They got to use him for something like 4 months out of what was meant to be a 3-year deal. He went on sick leave. They then have only had to pay him a fraction of what he's owed in salary, and maybe potentially, you know, with government subsidies, essentially. Then they've sold him back for almost as much as they bought him for a year later, while their team has continued to succeed, and also, because it's Nip, and they can't just avoid being a scumbag org, pocketed all that sticker money that I reported earlier in the year, which no one remembers, because no one cares about any of the bad things that happen in esports. So, Nip have done fine. Like, Nip have not been cooked, or embarrassed, or wrecked, or any of the other things I'm seeing people... Nork was. Nork's career got fucked over, sure. Not intentionally by anyone, just the way it goes sometimes. You just get unlucky. But Nip have done all right, okay? And so Device comes back to Astralis. Now, look, let's get into... it wouldn't be a Richard Lewis react stream, right? It wouldn't be a Richard Lewis react stream unless we got the Twitter and Reddit reactions, right? So we'll get to that in a second. But overall, this move would have been great if config hadn't been a fucking mess. It's like Astralis just, I don't know. I'm not going to say they can't get a break because they largely do it to themselves. And if they'd done a bit more homework on config. Remember, Zonic, by the way, who I think he played a small part in Astralis' success, famously said he turned him down because of his attitude, being late one time, and took Magisk because he could tell Magisk was hungrier and more professional. And that's been bore out, hasn't it? Zonic was right. they lost config. Now, if you have a lineup of like Blame F, config, not mental config, but good config, not starting fights config, but just popping heads on the server config. Glaive, I'm not thrilled with Zipnik's, but whatever, massive contract, he's probably not going anywhere. And then one other player, right? Like, it's actually all right. Like, it's going to be better than what it is. But the problem you've got is they don't have config anymore, and we don't know if these talks about them picking up other players are accurate or not yet, right? So you've got Device coming back. Like, the Blame F Glaive Device core is good enough to build a championship challenging team around, but you can't do it with Zipniks and one other mediocre rifler. Now, I've seen they've been talking about that Steyer guy from Sprout. He's a prospect. Is he ready to represent the Astralis brand? I don't know. There's got to be one rifler out there they can realistically get, a blockbuster signing, that if you put him alongside what they've already got, it's going to make up for the Zipnik shortcomings, right? Obviously, it's not Valda, because they've had the chance. Just really strange. But anyway, I think overall it's a good move. It's a good move for all parties. Everyone's done okay out of it. No one's been, you know, truly wrecked or anything. So look, let's just start. This was the initial reaction, because obviously it had been announced on Jackson first of all, and then it got confirmed. Also, this has got fuck all to do with anything, but why do the mods on the subreddit allow HLTV posts about news that's already been posted by another publication? It's just a duplicate post. They used to delete those all of the time when I used to be a news writer, so I don't understand why HLTV get a pass. Probably the same reason that after every day, some little ESL plebeian fucking makes give us feedback. Like, it's just spam. Like, just delete it. They don't even listen to the feedback. What's the fucking point? But yeah, like, just HLTV and ESL just get to do what they want on the subreddit. It's ridiculous. So anyway, top comment is from someone called Penis Taste Tester. Right? Good news. And he said, I'd be interested in seeing how Astralis does. Right? Can he really save Astralis? And look, yeah, the other bit I should talk about, obviously, is, yeah, Farlig, another player just fucked. Him and Lucky just meeting in a bar with that fucking music playing. It's not even talking to each other. Just Bubski's polishing the glasses. Like, how many careers is this fucking org gonna actually just ruin? Like, just absolutely destroy? Like, whatever, anyway. That's the top comment, but that's something we want to talk about. Twitch, right, Nip fans are gonna hate this guy for the long term. And they are. And, you know, maybe they're right too. I don't know. This meme here. Kill your 4-time major winning team. Take a lot of Swedish money. Don't play officials for many months. Refuse to elaborate. Leave and return to old team, which is in shambles. True Sigma Chad. That's not really what happened, was it? Because, let's be real, they were already fucked Astralis, like, when Device left. They were not doing well when he went. I mean, obviously better than what they are now. That was also another thing that precipitated the move. Everything was up in the air. People were getting a bit restless. People were already having contract talks. If you remember, there was that rumor out there at the time, wasn't there, where it was going to be Magisk, Dupree, and Zonic were going to be, you know, the partnership, but then it was originally like Device might have been in there as well, and then maybe Zip was coming along, but then he got the bag. You know, the whole team was maybe even thinking about leaving the org. Like, it was just, you know, where it was. But anyway, I just want to say, because it's going to be a recurring theme of stupidity in the Device discussion. What do players want to do most of all, right, in their short esports careers? Play. Attend tournaments. The idea that Device would rather be at home grinding face it on a fraction of the cat, it's just madness. And, like, that is actually, as you'll see, that is the narrative. That, like, he somehow didn't want to play. And, like, Nip tried everything and they just couldn't get him to come back. And it's like, no, like, Nip basically thought, listen, if it's going to be a long-term thing, let's just replace him and get on with our shit. And, you know, fair play to them. You have to do that sometimes. Anyway, on it goes. Legacy points deducted. You know, it's kind of an interesting, fun little meme. This was a nice comment from Notorious Roughneck. I was surprised to see sort of a classy Nip fan. As a Nip fan, I'm devastated and will always wonder what could have been. But as a CS fan, I'm glad one of the greatest is back to competitive play. Kind of how I feel about it, right? I want to see what a year out's going to have done for him. Thank you for everything, Device, which wasn't a lot. And that same guy, he got 2 in there. He was edging his karma bets, wasn't he? Shout out to Nip for financing his year off. This will be really funny if he doesn't show up in them matches. It's a weird comment, isn't it? I don't care myself. Astralis fan. Don't care myself. I'm happy to see my favourite player back to the team I support, right? So, don't care whether or not my team performs well and the player we've just bought back performs on that team. Claims to be a fan of the team. Bit strange. Generally, if you're a fan of a team, you probably should care if your star player plays well or not. I'm actually surprised. The Astralis fan base is really taken to the idea of him coming back. Loads of them are just like, oh yeah, nice one. I was like, wow. I thought he was going to get it both ways. I thought he was going to get double-dicked. I thought it was going to be like the fucking ass-to-ass scene in Requiem for a Dream, where it's like just Nip fans and Astralis fans, you know, the both heads of the dildo, you know, like, but no, Astralis fans are just happy, anyway, I can't say I feel thrilled with how he essentially fucked Nip over, even if intentionally, but good luck to him regardless. Still feels weird after he straight up shit talked them on his way out. And this is something as well, where it's like, that's not what went down. Nip fucked up there. Like, he was doing a walk around interview and he just said to the camera, like, oh, they're 5 steps, like, it feels like they're 5 steps ahead of Astralis. Now, if you're a savvy organization that cares about your player, you don't put that clip in. You don't use that clip. You leave that on the chopping room floor. But instead, Nip actively promoted it, so now he had to deal with that, and it did piss off the Astralis players and organization by all accounts. Insane how this guy screwed Nip over and yet does not get any flack for it. Absolutely does get flack for it. Definitely gets flack for it. Got loads of flack for it. Took nothing but flack for it. So there was that. Then there was a flurry of media stuff. I saw a really stupid post. I don't understand this. The duality of man. It's basically this. This is in January, right? Currently working towards a safe return, looking forward to getting back. And then this is the announcement of him joining Astralis in October, the end of October. So 10 months. So what's the duality? Exactly. Someone explain to me what the duality is again. Stupidity. All you had to do on the day that he signed was just put the word device in a Reddit post and it went to the front page. But like, what's the duality? Sports player contracted for an org says, I'm hoping to come back and play for the org. Gets signed by another org, says it's good to be back at this org I used to. But what's the contradiction? What's the duality there? How does this show the duality of man? Oh, right, that's right, it doesn't. It's just a fucking moron Redditor, because of course it is. The top comment in that thread, and this just shows you that moderators on that subreddit just don't really moderate anything. I saw a moderator demand that people be civil when talking about ESL, right? Please be civil when talking about ESL, the moderator said. And the top comment in this is the only one not getting fucked by Device in this situation is his ex-girlfriend, Amelia Hull. Top comment, by the way. Loads of updates on that one. Strong uptake. It's like, I don't know, maybe delete that. Guys, anyone? No? No calls for civility there? No? All right, yeah, okay. My bad. I don't know what the fucking mods on that sub do, actually. Like, actual garbage. Then there was a Sport TV 2.dk, because, of course, they definitely don't have any strong ties with Astralis or anything like that. But I thought this was actually quite smart, because this was definitely a sort of necessary piece of context. A lot of people were playing down the mental health aspect of things. Someone called Mads Wild, I believe, has kindly translated it there, and you can see that basically in the article it says, I wasn't sleeping well and it was hell, talking about the mental challenges after a good start to his time in the Swedish race. I think that means it just in Sweden or something. That's a bit of a weird translation. He's been adopted as an honorary Swede. Not anymore, of course. And then he entered into a period of mental problems. I had quite a long sick leave and a hard time with stress at the end of my period in NIP last November. I've been focusing on getting to know myself and I've had quite a few stress problems in general in my career. The fact is that stress can lead to both anxiety and depression. I had some issues with anxiety at one point. I wasn't really sleeping and it was just hell for me. It was really about understanding that. He says, it's part of being a professional athlete. The pressure can cause problems that can creep up on you over time. It's taking some time to feel how things affect your own body. You owe it to yourself to focus on yourself in this business. I've had a lot of help from a lot of great people who've given me a stable base to fall back on. I've had a vague platform in the past, but there wasn't as much support as was needed. It's a lie to say that it can't happen again, but I have a handle on how to deal with various symptoms, and I'm not worried about it at all. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, like, if you followed Device's career, you know that this is battles with like mental health and how that's exacerbated physical conditions he's had. That's like shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Remember, this is the guy that back when they were like TSM, you know, he was the semi-final and final choker guy. That's what he was known for doing. It was like one of the stains in the copybook of his career was that at that period of time, he only seemed to be average in the big games. And so he went away and talked to a sports psychologist, and that's great for performance, right? But it's not going to help you with the other things. And then he had like a digestive issue. I think it was GERD, like a reflux thing, and that was making him feel sick and, you know, vomiting and not being able to keep food down or not wanting to eat. So then you feel like you're not, you know, you don't have the energy because you're not getting good food in a timely fashion before games. And obviously everybody knows that's a condition. What's it exacerbated by? Stress. So when and also some of the symptoms of GERD can be like quite frightening if you've ever had it before. You know, you can get some like really nasty chest pains. And remember, you're already out of your mind, stressed and worried, and now you're like, oh my God, it's a heart attack. Like, it must be, you know. And so you start like freaking the fuck out. So anyway, he's had to deal with all of that stuff. And then, you know, like there was always a potential to have a backslide, I think. And that's what we saw at NIP. And so I think this is all essential context. And, you know, in general, like people in that Reddit thread, I mean, they are just Redditors, so they're sheep, really. These are all the people who were like, God, Config is so brave. Oh, wait, he started the fight. Config's a piece of shit. You know, like, they just, whatever's topical in the thread. But it was generally well received. Still was a lot of negative hate initially when the move was officially announced. Device himself came out and said a few words, and I thought this was like a nice little classy farewell. I know most of you will now have seen that as of today I'm no longer a NIP player. I'd like to thank you for all the support you've shown me over what has been a really difficult period. Overall, being at NIP was a positive experience. They are treating me well, and I hope to get home soon. I feel like I had a good relationship with everyone there, and they were understanding of my decision to take the time I needed to recover. We shared some success together, and I always appreciated the love and support from the fans. Things haven't worked out in the way anyone thought, but I'm pleased to see the team doing well and wish everyone the best for the future. Nikolai Hart. So, listen, good little point there at the end. He's picking up on the PR game. Say that you're happy the team is doing well without you. Of course you say that. That's perfect. You've nailed that. Don't just make it about you on the way out. Make it about, you know, oh yeah, the ninjas in pajamas. So that was good. Then there was this other thing here. Let me just see if I can find where was the other bit. NIP basically did put out a little thank you, right? They were classy back to him. It's in everyone's interests that whatever really went on, we don't ever get to find out about it. And you can see this was like a little, you know, bit from when he was there. Yeah, they did a little montage. Farewell, Device. Thank you, Nikolai. And anyway, there was a comment there that I was trying to find, and somebody said, for what? Right? Thanks for what? And somebody had replied with, for visiting, which I thought was great. Instead, you can see the top comment there, and I'm scared to scroll through these on Twitch, but you can just see the top comment, pig. And trust me, people in the replies to that are fucking livid. They are livid. They are not having a good time. So anyway, that was the overall reaction to it. There was a good interview done by my colleague from Deserto you might want to check out. Lewis Mira got to sit down with Device. Obviously, he's been doing all these interviews. And there's some pretty interesting stuff in this. I think definitely it goes into a bit more depth than the TV2.dk article. Obviously biased, you know, I am editor at large at this publication. But you can see it's great to be back at Astralis. I know some of the players already, plenty of the staff working here. Everyone's been very welcoming. Multiple conversations with everyone on the team about what they want from me and how I can best add value. We've talked about me being proactive and vocal and being free to make plays, which suits me very well. Again, dispelling this myth that he's a system AWPer. He's actually going to be, you know, proactive, right? Which I'm sure is actually the problem has been that because Astralis have had inexperienced at tier 1 AWPers, they haven't had somebody that can go and make plays and do the right reads. So, you know, listen, it's going to be a good thing for sure. And, you know, very frank and open about his illness as well there. So, yeah, it's definitely worth a read if you're interested in the Device move. So, getting to the end of the Device talk, he seems to be in a much better headspace. Obviously, there was no road back to him on NIP. And coming in while Astralis aren't at the major, it's the best time. Plenty of time to sort of bed down, you know, work on some things. They'll probably make another signing. I can't believe they're just going to stick with the players they've got now. They're going to bring somebody else in, another rifler, to replace Config. Overall, I feel like Astralis have done about as well as they could in this whole sorry mess. So I'm looking forward to seeing Device back on the server in 2023. In fact, I won't have to wait that long because they're at an event in Espoo, whatever that is. Finnish place, I think. The Eliza Cup in Espoo. Is that how it's pronounced? Easy poo. There you go. That's what it's being called. It's paw. Espo. Right, Espo. It's poo anyway. It's written like poo. Right. Everyone knows English language, best language. So you just got to deal with that. Certainly not your fucking Tolkien-esque fantasy Finnish nonsense. So anyway, yeah, Espoo. So you will actually get to see him in action at a tournament that's pretty low stakes. So that'll be interesting and it should give everybody an idea about where they're going to be moving forward. So I'm excited, man. Like, at the end of the day, whatever you think about, like, everything that happened, Device is, like, knocking on the door at 28 years old, getting to a point in his career where there's going to be limited opportunities to play moving forward. And I want to see him, you know, I want to have one last flash of Device brilliance on the server at a big tournament, hopefully at a major next year, just before, you know, he gets to retiring or whatever.